Let's speak now to Corey Brettschneider, who is a visiting professor of law at Fordham Law School in New York and a professor of political science at Brown University. Welcome to the programme. Let's pick up on that report from Catty Kay and look at the possibility that Roe versus Wade could be overturned, which of course would be a huge bombshell.
Yes, Justice Kennedy, who has just announced his plans to leave the court, was a defender of Roe in a subsequent case called Casey. And as you heard, President Trump has vowed to put somebody on the court who would overturn that case. And certainly the Supreme Court has that power to overturn its own precedents. And we might see that in the near future.
And if we did see that, would it mean then that abortion would no longer be legal in the United States?
One immediate consequence is likely that the states would be able to decide. Roe versus Wade said there was no constitutional right of life for the fetus and that there was a right of privacy for all women to have an abortion in this country. And overturning it would immediately likely go back to the states and their ability to decide, as was the case before Roe. But there is a possibility that Justice Gorsuch has raised in his writings that the court could eventually, in the long term, find that the fetus has a constitutional right of life. And what that would trigger is an equal protection right to not be murdered in the way that people who have been born have that right. And the radical possibility in the long term is that the Supreme Court, under this theory, could impose a nationwide right of the fetus to life, and that would mean no abortion nationally. So the immediate likely scenario is the states would decide, but there is this possibility that a very radical conservative court could impose a national right of the fetus to life.
So you mentioned Neil Gorsuch, who was Mr. Trump's choice for the last vacancy. And the person who was overlooked then was Thomas Hardiman, who is seen as a front runner, again, a very conservative voice.
Yes, and people have been reporting that Trump's sister is a fan of Hardiman, so that's a possibility. He also has been notable for his support of gun rights, so that's another area that Hardiman would likely draw some questions on, in addition, of course, to questions about his views about Roe versus Wade. The key for the justices would be to try to get them to answer the questions. Justice Gorsuch famously just avoided saying anything but giving factual statements, so there'll be a big challenge here in getting the actual view of the nominee out.
We know now that President Trump has a tendency to be mercurial, and he's also a showman. So even though there has been a sense of who the runners and the riders are, he could pull someone from completely, that no one has considered. Is that possible?
I think anything is possible with this president. He has a tendency to try to shock and surprise. One thought is that he might try to play to the base, and Judge Barrett is seen as a favorite of evangelicals. She has extensive writing that many think is a signal that she would certainly reverse Roe versus Wade, and so she's also a possibility.
Do you think then that the right to life and the abortion issue is going to be absolutely paramount, or are there a couple of other issues that President Trump's thinking about?
I think that's a big one, and he campaigned, as your story pointed out, on the fact that he would appoint a justice to reverse Roe versus Wade. So I think that's front and center. But there are other equally important issues. Will the court's precedents protecting gay rights be respected, or will they be overturned? Second Amendment gun rights, will they be expanded? And then also the power of the federal government to regulate the environment and other issues is also on the table.
OK, we will leave it there. The announcement will be made at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time by the president. Corey Brettschneider, visiting professor of law at Fordham Law School in New York. Thanks very much for joining us here on NewsHour. That's it for this edition. Thanks for your company this past hour. I will be back again tomorrow. I do hope you'll join me then. Bye-bye.